Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Navid Muazzez, and welcome to another episode of The Lifestyle Architects. Today, I'm super pumped to be joined by Jordan Harbinger. Jordan is a world traveler, lifestyle coach, and the man behind the awesome podcast, The Art of Charm. And Jordan and his team, they teach men the skills to become more successful in both business and with the women, focusing on social interaction. And yeah, you help also men become more confident, charismatic, challenging the old beliefs, and to live the life they deserve, basically. That's a little intro of all the cool things you have going on. So I would like to welcome you first to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following you for a while, and you're always in the top of kind of health and self help in the podcast category in the US. And so it's really cool to see what you've built over such a long time, actually. Like, when did you start your podcast?
Oof. I started in 2006 with my co-host AJ, and that was late 2006, and we've done it pretty much every week with several exceptions up until now. And now we release 3 times a week because
Wow.
it's taken on such a life of its own that there's really no reason to not release more and more content because people are consuming it.
Definitely. We can get into more of that as well. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, and then kind of how you got your start with the Art of Charm podcast.
Sure, sure. So essentially, when I was in law school, I was interning at a law firm, and it was a London-based firm. And the guy who hired me was never in the office, and I thought to myself, this is really weird and kind of annoying. I don't really understand, but good, more power to him. Maybe he's going to quit or something. And then everybody was talking about. There were rumors going around about how he made more money than everyone else, and I thought that was pretty strange because how can somebody who's never in the office make more money than lawyers when it's all about billable hours? And so one day he sat me down for coffee, probably some obligatory, mentor coffee thing, even though he was never there. And he's like, "Oh, ask me anything that you want." So I said, "Okay, how come?" And obviously, I didn't really care about the job at the time. I said, "Okay, how come you make more money than everybody else and you're never in the office?" And he was like, well, all right." The guys, and he proceeded to tell me that the guys who are the technical lawyers who are in the office at 1 a.m. on a Saturday and they're just, busting their butts 24/7, and they're great. They're really high value people. They're partners for a reason, but they are, at the end of the day, they're replaceable with somebody else that has similar technical knowledge. But the person that's out bringing in clients for the firm and bringing in business, that person is essentially irreplaceable because if they leave with clients. And so they have to be compensated that way as well. And they have to be incentivized to bring in clients. Otherwise, the partners would just sit there and do whatever work they wanted and bill and go home. So what he does is he goes on cruises and he plays golf and he does jujitsu and he goes to the gym and he goes to charity fundraisers, and it's all paid for by the firm, first of all. And then at the end of the day, he gets $1 million commission check for bringing in an investment banker. Because at the end of the day, what he told me, this is what changed my life, is that people buy you. And that was huge because what I learned from that was you can be the greatest law firm that has the greatest technical skill and you bring in the deals and that might make you famous and that's great. But at the end of the day, if it's you and me and we both have equal technical skill or roughly equal and equal levels of experience, or maybe not even, if that banker likes me or that deal maker likes me more than they like you, I'm getting the business. Doesn't matter if it's fair. It doesn't matter if it's a good choice for his business. It doesn't matter if it's the wisest choice for him. It's just what happens. And then that's how people get paid on Wall Street. And so I was at that time just a gung ho Wall Street guy. So I thought, all right, rather than sit here and learn all this technical skill, which I'll learn on the job anyway, why don't I work on my people skills and my networking skills? So I started to bust my tail. I read every book I could find. I took classes. I got coaches. I did everything I could. And of course, it comes down to practice. So I went out every night for 6 days a week for over a year. And I was going out with my business partner, AJ, who just happened to be really good with the opposite sex. And so I taught him what I knew about networking and creating relationships and beneficial tit for tat type of things and networking skills and everything I could find. And he taught me how to meet girls. And people started following us around and asking us how this was done. And dot, 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 the Art of Charm was born because I wasn't going to write a book and neither was he. I was studying for the bar exam and he's a cancer biologist. So started a podcast and, look, fast forward 7.5 years later, we spent 3.5 years on satellite radio. The show is #1 in self-help, top 5 in health and iTunes in the U.S. music store. And we've run a multi seven-figure business teaching guys these skills.
I mean, that's inspiring as well. And I love what you say that people they buy you, and that's kind of what I'm doing as well with my building a personal brand. It's like people don't really buy products or companies anymore. I mean, even more than
No.
before. It's always been like that, I think. But now people starting to realize, that you can start a blog, you can start a podcast, and really build your personal brand. So, kind of, did you always have this in mind that this would turn into what it is today when you first started? Like,
Of course not. Of course not. I mean, I don't have to tell you that, right? I mean, I started the podcast in my friend's basement. We didn't even have our own basement. We started the podcast down there. Some of the old ones, you can hear the furnace kick on, and the microphones were like the Guitar Center Clearance Special, which is an audio store here in the U.S. I think we paid like for a whole podcasting setup 6, 7 years ago. I think we spent like $200 for two microphones and a preamp. We had to special order the USB interface because it didn't exist. Plugging microphones in your computer, people were like, "Why would you want to do that?" And so it was just a really strange thing. And then even as recent as 5, 6 years ago, we didn't really understand what was going on. We just knew the show was huge, and that people were paying us lots of money for coaching, but we still weren't like, "This is what we're going to do and retire on it, and it's going to be a
yeah.
feasible income stream for a long time."
Yeah, but you were very passionate about it. That kind of was a passion project from start, kind of, and then it grew
Yes.
into something else because people were finding you. And how did you do the marketing kind of back in the day? Was it just that people found you in iTunes, or did they hear word of mouth, or how was it?
You know what? It's funny you should ask that because somebody asked me that the other day. It was like my mom's friend actually, and I couldn't answer the question because it was 100% hustle. What we did, we put the podcast up in iTunes, and it was fun. People found us through iTunes. Yeah, that was fine. But iTunes back then was like there were no graphics or anything. It was just like a navigational list of shows, and there were 300 podcasts in there. And so it was impossible to stick out. I don't even think there were rankings at the time. I think there was just like, here's a list of podcasts that are tagged with sexuality or whatever it was back then. They didn't even have self-help or anything. It was just, it was like sex, tech, and news or something like that. I think there were 4 or 5 categories. And so we just put it up there. And sure, yeah, we got maybe like 80 to 800 listeners from that. But what we had business cards printed up. We gave them to people at bars and clubs. We left them in bathrooms. I was online until, man, 3, 4, 5 a.m. pretty much every night, emailing every blogger I could find that had anything even remotely to do with our niche. I made spreadsheets, emailed them, asked them to link up to our shows, asked them to check it out, told them about what podcasting was, had to educate this huge market. And I just spent dozens and dozens of hours hustling and focusing on audience building. A lot of that was totally ineffective, and a lot of it was really effective. And look, people who start now, I know I sound like that old man, but now it's like back in my day, I had to email everybody to sign up for my podcast and check it out and do the hard way. And now you just have to make a YouTube and people find it. It's like I'm that old guy who had to walk up the hill both ways in the snow. But honestly, I wouldn't trade it because I learned what works firsthand, what doesn't. And I also was able to build relationships with people early on, which are still serving us as far as the show and the business are concerned.
Definitely. I mean, we can get into first kind of how maybe some people that are listening, how they can build these relationships that maybe they can use in business. Then we can talk about kind of how you can leverage podcasting to grow your personal brand and network, which you've done in an amazing way.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I know you've heard this a million times on the show, so I'm going to try not to be vague with it when I say, like, oh, it's about giving value. Everyone goes, yeah, blah, blah, blah. What does that even mean? And I'm with you. If you're sick of hearing that, join the club. But what it does mean is instead of looking for what a lot of people do is they go, there's like sort of level 1 networking where you walk around, you got business cards, and you're like, hey, my name's Jordan. Here, take this. Call me if you ever need a web guy. And you're like, whatever. Who are you? This is garbage. It ends up being a bookmark if you're lucky, and usually ends up not even making it out of the cocktail party or wherever we met. And then there's like, I guess, level 2. And I'm making this up as I go along. Don't write level 1, level 2, and then email me later and ask because I'm not going to remember how I classify these. But there's the next level from there is, oh, hey, Navid, I noticed you got the show. It seems really interesting. I would love to help you. I've got a great idea for a guest. I've got some content. You should have me on your show. And it's like, okay, that might work if you've got something where like a large audience and you say, I'll help you promote it or whatever. But usually people are just kind of bugging you for value. Then there's, of course, the next level where it's like, hey, you know what? You should meet this really interesting author. He's a great fit for what you're doing. And that's much more useful, right? Because then you're like, oh, I'll look that up. That's a really interesting person. It fits my niche. You've clearly done your homework. And then there's really highly effective networking, which is what people who actually get through to me do and what I try to do for everybody else that I meet, which is like, hey, David, I've got an author friend. He would be great for your show. He's a perfect fit. Here's why. I'm going to send you an email later on with his contact info. He's going to be CC'd on it. I'm going to make it so easy for you. You literally don't have to do anything other than say, okay, make the intro so that I'm not annoying you. Right. And that way you're like, wow, that worked out well. And if I do that 3 or 4 times, you start to go, hey, Jordan, I really appreciate all these introductions. Every guest has really nailed it. What can I do for you? Unless you're kind of a scumbag, in which case I might have to ask you for something, but whatever. And even if that's the case, that's totally fine. Meanwhile, that same process is going on the other side of the fence with each of those guests. They go, man, Jordan, that interview I did with Navid was really good. I appreciate it. And that keeps happening over and over. And getting publicity for authors or bloggers or whoever is something that they usually have to pay for. So if I'm doing it for free and it's in their target demo and it's not just like, hey, a spread on Us Weekly that's going to be on sale and a bunch of housewives are going to read it and it has nothing to do with your business model, they'll do it anyway just to do it, but it's not as worthwhile. So now, instead of me asking for something where I'm getting value or even where I'm giving you a direct favor for myself, I'm literally connecting you with another person. It takes minutes of my time. And what it does is it continually builds connections between other folks in my same network. And that's better relationship building, because at first what I was doing was I was giving value, and it took up all of my time. I was working for other people essentially for free constantly trying to build value, and it was exhausting. And the returns on that are usually slow to come at first, and then they come quickly later on. But even better is when you can have Navid talk to talk to party B, and then those guys are both trying to give me a return now. Reciprocity slash, they just understand that was valuable for them. So that ends up sort of, as far as social currency is concerned, we call it social currency. You're printing it now, because instead of you just owe me one and I get a free lunch next time I'm in your neighborhood, which is bad, don't get me wrong. Now I got 2 free lunches, except instead of a lunch, I want to go on your show and I want to go on his blog, and boom, there it is. And you do that 5 times a day instead of staying up till 5 a.m. emailing people and asking for things. And you're going to have a much easier time building relationships. And I wish I had learned this, years and years ago. I would have spent a lot less time on the internet and we'd be a lot further along than we are now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is powerful. And especially if I go on a podcast sometimes, and they might be an up and coming podcast. Usually I ask them if they need any guests on, and then I make introductions, and, it's not like I ask them for anything afterwards. I just provide value to them. And then they think, yeah, Navid is the connector. He's connecting with people.
Yeah.
And even when I was starting out, I didn't know anyone in the field. I didn't know any influencers. What I did was if I kind of knew someone, I connected them with a person that maybe would be beneficial for their business or what they're doing in some way. That's kind of how I got my start. So a follow-up to this is that if you want to kind of provide value to someone, I'm sure you're getting tons of emails every week. I'm pretty sure. You've been at it for a few years, so you're getting tons more than me. But how do you? If you're getting emails, how can someone ask for advice the right way? There's many bad ways to do it, and many good ways.
There are. There are many bad ways to do this.
Most are bad.
Yeah. It's funny you should mention that. I guess I forgot to sort of add to my earlier point. The way that relationship building method that I just outlined, just by way of your current point here, is that's actually even better, because here's the thing. If I'm new, then I don't really have any value to give you, even if I wanted to, right? Say you're the big guy, Navid, you got this great show, and I'm nobody. I'm coming out of the woodwork. I can't say, hey, I can help you increase your business. 1, you get that email every hour.
Yeah.
2, you know that there's a catch. And 3, even if there's no money or trade involved, How can I help you improve your business if I haven't even been there? You don't know that. I'm untested. You're gambling on me. And asking somebody to gamble on you is the same thing as asking for value in return because you're basically asking for time and resources.
Mm-hmm.
So by connecting you with somebody else that maybe I've hustled that connection as well, just by going to meetups and getting people's contact info and asking how I can help them, you are how I can now help them. Right. So that's why I'm printing that social currency. I don't have money. I don't have connections. I don't have a blog or an audience on my podcast, et cetera, at this time, hypothetically. What I do have is I got AJ Jacobs' business card, and that guy's brilliant and funny, and you want a show with brilliant and funny guests. Here we go. I'm going to make that connection. Now we don't have to worry about, I don't have to worry about the fact that I'm nobody, right, in internet land.
Yeah.
And so going back to your current point, how do people ask for help in the right way or value in the right way? That's a tricky one because I'll tell you, I get the wrong way pretty much constantly every single day. Hey, just one quick question. Or, hey, I've learned a lot of really interesting things over the years. I'd love to share them with you. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I love the fact that people write to me. I write back to everyone.
Yeah.
Unless it goes in my spam folder, I see it, I write back, or I delegate it to somebody. And I don't mean delegate it like I don't want to deal with it, but somebody who's going to be able to help you. You always get an answer from the Art of Charm. That much I promise you. But I get a lot of people that are like, hey, I've got this really unique situation. And then they proceed to outline a very not unique situation that has happened to a zillion guys that I've answered on a zillion podcasts. And so I would say step one is do your homework. Have I already answered this question in the past? If it's not a question and you're trying to help me or you're trying to get something very unique, like how do I build up my podcast audience, Google and look for shows like maybe like this one where I've talked about this already. And you can ask me about it if you've already listened to it and you have a specific question about it. That's phenomenal. But in the meantime, do your homework because if you don't and you go, hey, Jordan, have you ever done an interview where you've talked about how to network? I'm probably going to write back and be like, yes, and then send it and then ignore your follow-up email if you ask me where it is because I'm not in the business of Googling things for people who are too lazy to do it. The other thing is if people need something that is actually specific and that I can only answer, such as how do I build a show in the self-help niche and launch it correctly so that I end up in the new and noteworthy category of iTunes and blah, 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 or whatever, right? Then I will probably say, all right, well, this is a more complicated question. I'm happy to consult with you on this, but it's something that's going to take more than 5 seconds in an email. And then you can either do the following. You can offer some compensation for that, which is not unreasonable, especially if you're starting a business. Or you can say, all right, well, I don't expect you to do that for free. Here's what I can do. And you can offer a variety of things. And there's no shame in saying, I want to help you, but I don't quite know how. The problem is people go, I want to help you and I don't know how. What can I do for you? Now you're putting the monkey on my back and I've got to think of a way that you can offer me value? Nope, not my job. Next. If you say, if you say I'm in a club and I've gotten an email recently. This guy said I'm in a club. It's a doctor's organization or something like that, or at least it sounds like it. And he goes, I'm in this health organization. There's some really interesting guys in there talking about like insulin and diabetes and fat loss and anti-aging and all this stuff. Are you interested in that for your audience? And I said, absolutely. So he connected me with a bunch of those guys. One of them had me out to Vegas and gave me like a $5,000 amazing health exam that was like blood markers, physical, VO2 max, all this really cool stuff. I had him on my show. Then that doctor was like, so I got a question about this. And I was like, sweet, let's go to lunch. I'll tell you everything I know. Because he gave me a tremendous opportunity by connecting me with somebody else. He didn't let me think about how I should have him do it. There was no work on my part other than showing up to Vegas, which is, of course, is reasonable. But he didn't ask me to think of how he could help me. If I have to think about how you can help me, I'm just going to hire an expert because it's not my job to think about how you can help me for free with your limited skill set. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds dickish because there's a lot of kids that are like, but I would go to the ends of the earth emailing people and trying to find guests for your show. Good. Then find out which guests are appropriate for my show. Don't ask me who I want to contact. I have an assistant for that. Yeah. I don't need you to Google it and then email. Now I've got to do something for you. No, you got to figure it out. So be creative with it. If you're wrong, it's okay. If you say, hey, there's this guy on YouTube and he's a clown that, juggles water bottles. He should be on your show. And I go, no, thanks. and you try again and again and again, I'm not going to get annoyed. You're trying to help me. I'm reasonable, right?
Yeah.
But if you ask me which guys from YouTube I want to connect with, you better you better work for YouTube or something, or have a reason for me to believe this isn't just me wasting my time. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really big issue. Is a lot of people, especially younger guys, and I get it. I was young once, and I would write to people and be like, "Hey, can we talk on the phone for an hour? It's just a like a really quick call." And somebody who has negative 100 hours of free time in the week is like, "No, who are you? I'm not even going to answer this." So I had a lot of unanswered emails. So if you're out there emailing people, how can I help you? Tell me what you want done and I'll do it. And you're not getting an answer and you wonder why, then that's why. Because you're actually making more work for the person you're emailing.
Definitely. I mean, you made some really great points, but I think for me, it's like when I started out as well. It's about when I started with business. I didn't know much. I had to learn everything. So I found ways to kind of provide value and like maybe go to their site, learn everything about them, and kind of that way like writing really thoughtful comments. Or maybe if I'm really good at fitness, I can provide something else. If I see an entrepreneur, they need some other kind of help that's not related to online marketing for whatever reason, then I can provide value. And I see like people are, yes, you said, they are like asking, how can I help you? But then you have
Yeah.
to like they put it on me, right? I mean, I get that now more since I'm growing my brand and I'm getting more emails every week. So
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm getting this, I'm going to get more. So even from just starting out to now, it's like been an exponential growth. And I can just imagine how many you are getting. So
Oh yeah. I mean, I when I saw your show in the top rank iTunes in your category, I was like, "Oh yeah, I talked with that guy earlier." And then I actually made sure that we were still scheduled because I was like, "I hope I got back to him and that got set
yeah.
up." And of course it did, thankfully, because I have an assistant who's more organized than me, which is why she has a job here at Art of Charm. But I was like, "Damn, this guy's doing a really good thing." And when you first asked me to be on, I was like, "Sure, I will do that," because I looked at it and it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna launch this soon. Maybe it was already you'd already done it. We had mutual friends. I think when I checked on Facebook, that didn't hurt, of course,
Yeah.
because those people were smart as well. And I thought, well, they wouldn't be friends with you or have accepted your friend request in such large numbers if you were just like this annoying person who was Facebook stalking all of us. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like, especially now since podcasting is booming, you are getting tons of requests. They see you in the
Yeah.
top category, and a lot of people, they might not even be interested in the person. They just try to leverage them. When I go for guests, I do a ton of research. I know a lot about them. I know kind of how they've done a little bit with their business and all that kind of stuff because I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested in the person I'm interviewing. Otherwise, it wouldn't work for me. I mean, I want to bring value to my audience and bring a really great show. And that's kind of how I look for guests. And I know Mixergy does
Yeah.
the same. Like when they even do pre-interview with guests, I haven't got to that level, but that's also a way you can bring even more value. So
Yeah, yeah. It's you're absolutely right. The pre-interview, by the way, you might want to start just because it does help make things so much smoother. This is fine because we're both pros, but I would imagine somewhere in the archives of your show, you've got a couple duds that you had to delete.
yeah, I mean, I did interviews from, I can say from mid June last year, but these were just for my site basically to get
Sure, sure.
started, stuff like that. But I mean, I'm not proud of everyone, but the ones I'm doing now are more in depth. I kind of found the way I wanted to do interviews, and it takes time. It's just
Yeah,
practice basically. So I want to
yeah.
get into more now with the podcasting thing on how you
Sure.
kind of can grow your personal brand and network through a podcast. Because a lot of people are launching them these days, and I
Yeah, I
mean, there's
know.
too many, I think. But
I think so too, yeah.
yeah. So let's
Yeah.
get into that.
I mean, here's the thing. The ones that are not that good will die, and the reason is because people don't understand that it's a lot more work than just recording yourself on a microphone or a webcam. Because you have to have a personality that's suitable for it. You've got to be able to swing the guests. You've got to be able to entertain. You've got to be able to persuade. Most people can't do all of those things consistently, even if they can do it once in a while. Most people can't do it every week, and it's a lot of work to do that, especially if your return is low. And that's why there's a million podcasts out there that have 5 episodes, and the last one is from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there are too many, but luckily for guys like you and I who are trending still and in the top 10 from whatever category we're in, we get that bump from having a constant fan base that's sharing our stuff because I'd like to think it's good. That way we don't have to worry about it. The other guys don't tend to bump us out of there anytime soon unless they're really doing kick butt work, in which case we usually team up so that we can share audience because that's win-win. But going to the personal branding thing, I didn't necessarily want to have a personal brand when I started the show. It just happened. And the reason that it happened was because the show got popular. Duh, right? No science breakthrough there. The thing is though, now people know from marketing perspectives that having a personal brand is extremely important. So what we do in order to create a personal brand is create a popular show, and the way that we create a popular show is by having popular guests, etc. But yeah, the effect is great because you start a show, and when we started, we literally went on the show and said, we aren't experts at this stuff. We're not coaches. This isn't something we're going to be doing as a job. And then months and years go by, and it's like, wait a minute, the experts we're having on the show started being experts 2 months ago. They're not experts, they're marketers. They don't know what they're talking about. And then we started to talk with them a lot about what they were doing, and it became really clear that a lot of the guys were just saying that they were experts, which, is something that people can get away with when the magic of the internet makes you look that way. However, when somebody's been listening to your show for years or months or years, they know from talking with you that you're credible. They know from talking with you and you talking with others that you know what you're talking about. They know that you understand their problems. And that's extremely important because a sales letter might say, hey, I'm Jordan Harbinger. When I was this age, I couldn't get a date and I couldn't get a job. And they read that letter and they go, oh, I'm a lot like that guy. But it's still a sales technique. They might not make it through the letter. They might not care. They might see through it. It might come across as disingenuous, which most of them do anyway. But a podcast, you can't really fake sincerity for a year or 2 years or even 6 months for that matter. It's just too engaging of a medium for the chaff and garbage to last very long. So if you're really good at what you do and you really deserve what you're going for, you will get that personal brand. You will get that audience because people won't engage with you otherwise and you will fail. So podcasting is a great filter. YouTube, you can have a lot of production. It's harder still than just writing. Writing, you can pretend a lot. YouTube, you can pretend a little. You might have 2-minute videos. You might have them edited and produced really well. Podcasts, especially these long format ones for an hour, trying to fake that you're good at what you do or that you're interesting is basically impossible. Over the long term.
Yeah, definitely. Why I started my podcast in the first place or starting interviewing people, influencers, is kind of a selfish reason because I wanted to learn from them, but also in a way that I could provide value, of course. It was not just I was taking from them. I really tried to be interested in what they were doing and kind of ask them like come on my show. But before that even I tried to provide value if I could to them, maybe going to their blogs, at least knowing something about them, what they were doing, reading their books. So you have had so many kind of high profile guests on your show. I had Robert Greene on the show. You also had him on. And I know you had Neil Strauss on. He's not on many podcasts. So can you talk a bit about this stuff, like how you go after these really high profile, hard to get guests on your show?
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. For Neil, I'll just come right out and say it. We've been friends for a really, really long time. So I was like, hey, for example, he's got a new book that's coming out. I can't talk about too much about what it is, but he said that he would come on the show and talk about it first before anybody else, which is awesome. And so, that's just something that you do for your friends. I love Neil. He's an awesome guy, super smart. We actually traveled to North Korea together on a vacation with a group of other friends a couple years ago. So we've got this sort of weird, tight bond where we went on this weird trip and, I'm good friends with him and his wife. They're great people. So that was kind of like a cheat where it's like, all right, I already know this person and he's going to come on and actually take time to do that versus, telling me he's too busy, which he is. He is too busy and I take up too much of his time, but oh well, like you do these things to your friends. But Robert Greene, that was a thing where I had everybody under the sun that I knew introduce me to him. He actually ended up also being a friend after a while, and he's a great guy. He's very giving. He's not stingy with his time, but he has to be protective of it because he's creating. And anytime you're creating something, you've got to be protective of your time or you can't do it. The other thing that I do to get higher profile guests on is continually show that there's value in it for them. And so I don't necessarily call up, Damon John from Shark Tank and say, hey, will you be on my podcast? Or be on my podcast. It has more viewers than Shark Tank, because that's not true, right? So what's in it for him is I say, listen, I know that you are consistently helping develop entrepreneurial endeavors, and I go, this is the angle. And I know that we have mutual friends in, whatever entrepreneur he might be mentoring that I also know, and I'll say have that person put in a good word. I'll also get a hold of his PR people, give them the numbers that allow them to justify the decision, which luckily I'm able to demonstrate now. But I'll also then say, listen, I know that your passion is teaching other entrepreneurs how to succeed, especially minorities, and so that's something that we're interested in hearing about. You can promote anything you want. We want you to talk about something you're passionate about. We're very open to the topical subject matter. And so they don't have to come on and talk about Shark Tank and then scratch off an obligatory checkbox in their contract that says they're going to promote the latest thing they're doing with ABC. He's going to do that. He's got a lot of opportunities to do that. I come on and say, you can promote whatever you want. We can talk about pretty much whatever you want. But I'm the host. I know I'm going to guide the discussion. And that's the skill set that I've built over years. I know he's not just going to come on and be like, buy my book, buy my DVDs, buy my CDs, whatever. He's not going to do that. He's not going to be able to do that. So I make it really open format. I make it really open in terms of subject matter. And that's really good for bigger guests because I don't put the monkey on their back. I make suggestions based on things I've read about them on everything from Wikipedia to their own blog to their latest few tweets. The celebrities are always on there. Oh, check out this latest charity that I love about autism. And you go and, hey, do you want to talk about autism on a show with a large platform? And they go, yeah, I'm totally passionate about that right now. Boom, celebrity interview that you'd never land otherwise because nobody cares about their charity right away. Or they do, but they can't act quickly enough because the news shows have already done it or they're not interested. And everybody else is going, yeah, we'll mention it on the next season of The Bachelor. Meanwhile, she wants to talk about it now. And you're going to make it easy for her. She can just show up to studio or she can just show up on Skype. She can do it. And that's another thing. You might have to sacrifice a little for celebrities. I remember Damon John was like, I'm on my cell phone in a car and it was quiet enough and we cleaned it up. I would never let somebody else do that. But, you make a little bit of sacrifice.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if I tell him, no, I want you to do it on Friday night at 7 p.m., he's going to be like, well, guess what? Eat a bag of dicks, Jordan, because there's no way I'm going to waste that time, on your show. It's not going to happen. And so I probably wasn't allowed to say that on your show. I apologize. But, that's exactly the type of thing is like he's in the car. He's probably reading the Wall Street Journal or he can do a media interview. It's a no-brainer. You make it as easy as humanly possible for people to get interested in sharing their message. They don't care. It's all about that what's in it for me. You guys have heard this before. I'm making it easy for them. I'm making it completely about them. I'm making them able to promote everything in exchange for their time and expertise. And then I can clean it up to be of value for the audience. It's not an infomercial. Yeah. It's really great value for the audience because people who are successful know how to bring value. It's only the slimy marketing guys that don't, and you don't have those on your show.
Definitely. I mean, it helps as well when you have more of a conversational podcast, so you don't have a set script for it, like some podcasts do. I know Entrepreneur Fire, they've done a great job with it, but now they have more leverage, so they can go after high-profile guests because they get tons of downloads. But what I wanted to get to as well is if you're starting out, I get this question a lot, like how can you get great guests on the show when you're just starting out? Like you want to get maybe you don't get Robert Greene right away because you don't have a lot of guests on. I had some leverage when I started, but nothing close to Entrepreneur Fire or what you have. But I knew some people in the space, so that's kind of what I did. But what kind of the email? Some people, they want to email maybe 5 people after this show and start just interviewing people, set up their blog, podcast, or whatever that would be.
Sure. I'll be frank. A lot of it is smoke and mirrors, which is not what you want to hear. And I don't mean lie about what you have, but I do mean combined with working up from the bottom, you're going to have to make it. You're going to have to sell it. So Entrepreneur on Fire has a lot of downloads, but here's the thing. They don't have anywhere near the audience that The Art of Charm does, but I'm not going to be able to say that on his show. And he's not going to tell other people that he's going for that that's the case. And it doesn't matter because all that matters is the value to the audience. He can say, look, who I've had on, look at the show. It's released 7 days a week. It won best in iTunes. It's a good show. He can do that, right? And I encourage other people to do something similar. If you're just launching a podcast, get as many guests as you can to launch with right away. Even if they're other bloggers that are small time, it won't really matter because if those people each help you promote, which they're more apt to do other than smaller or larger celebrities who have a lot of other irons in the fire. If you have 10 guests and they're all small time bloggers, but they all promote for you at the same time, you will probably hit new and notable in iTunes. Then when you pitch a larger person who's still maybe a blogger, you say, I was on with the vid, I was on with Jordan. Those guys are cool. And also I'm in new and notable in iTunes right now, so we're top ranking. That makes us pretty hot. And they'll go, yeah, sure, why not? Then you take that blogger and you bounce their name, or you say, hey, I would love to contact this person, and I noticed you're friends with them on Facebook, or I noticed you're connected with them on LinkedIn, or you're in a similar space. Do you happen to know them? Would you mind putting in a good word for me? It's really hard for somebody at my level to get good guests. You were a great guest, and I'd love to have this person if you can recommend them. Then you've got your blogger friends emailing and going, hey, sure, I just did a show with Navid. It was really good. He's a good interviewer. His audience has panned out for me. Consider doing it. And that's how you get good guests. You're not just cold pitching every single person. You're having a good word put in for you. And I do this. Show's number one in self-help, top 5 in health. I don't cold email everybody. In fact, I almost never do that. I have somebody email them, even if it's just a show fan. A show fan can say, hey, AJ Jacobs, who I just spoke with, I know you're a really interesting guy and you're really busy. Jordan runs a podcast, blah, 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 because otherwise I have to do that. Yeah. What goes through someone's mind when you say, I've got this and I've got that and I've got this? It's like, well, is that really true? And if it's so true, why are you emailing me?
Yeah, smart.
How come you're reaching out?
Definitely.
So if a show fan does it, what that subconsciously says is, I listen to both of you guys, and I know from that experience that you are a fit for him. And that's a value give. Whereas if I cold call, that is a pitch.
Yeah.
You guys know what I mean? Do you understand like the subtle difference there?
Definitely. I mean, I think personally, like you got to start somewhere, and you might not even want the biggest guest when you're starting out, because maybe your interviews will suck and then you blow everything, like with Seth Godin right away. It's not good. You might want to start with maybe your blogger friends, other podcasters just starting out, but don't be afraid later and just interview your blogger friends, because that's not maybe how you're gonna grow and get the credibility you want, which we can get into as well. How you have kind of been able to position yourself as an expert and to grow your business. And now I'm sure you're charging much higher prices as well. After definitely. So that's a question I actually talked about with Nick Reese, kind of this concept of premium positioning. I find this super interesting. So I want to hear your take on it.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. Nick Reese, case in point, Nick Reese, good friend of mine. If I had wanted to be on your show and you were like, oh, sorry, I'm really busy right now, I would have probably looked on your site, saw that Nick Reese was on there, called him and been like, hey, would you mind making an intro? And then that would have probably turned the tables a little bit, or turned the tide a little bit. And so, premium positioning. Here's the thing. A lot of people look at our stuff, and if they're uninitiated, they might go, oh, it's pickup artisty, which it's not. We don't teach pickup stuff. Our clients are completely different. But the reason is because not only are we able to charge more, we offer a premium experience. We don't meet our clients at a Starbucks and talk about pickup lines. We have a training facility in LA where guys fly in from all over the world. We have people talk about that experience on the internet, on the shows, and testimonials and videos. We just had a bunch of SEAL Team 6 guys in here, Navy SEALs, had some Green Berets in here, military intelligence, U.S. Marine Special Forces, intelligence agents, things like that come through the program. And when that happens, we lean on that. We say, hey, would you mind writing something anonymously about how this program is going to help you professionally? And that looks really good, right? That looks really good. That's a great testimonial. Or you might get a letter from somebody, and I used to just let this stuff go right over my head. I'd get a letter from somebody that's like, hey, after your program, I met a great girl, and now we're getting married, and I'll write back and go, great, that's so awesome. And then at the AOC team meeting on Monday, I'll go, Matt Goldstein met a girl and he's getting married. And they go, oh, that's great. And then somebody in the corner will go, well, good, let's get a testimonial of him saying that. And I go, oh, that's probably a wise idea. And so you get a testimonial of that. And then you get another guy who goes through and writes a letter and says, after the program, I quit my job that I hated. I've got this confidence to go and start my own thing thanks to the Art of Charm. And we go, great, and we pat ourselves on the back, and then somewhere the marketing department goes, get that in writing and put a picture of him next to it on the website. And we go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So then when people look at your stuff, they go, Oh, this helps in marriage and dating. Oh, this helps in professional situations. Wait, your clients are people like me. They're not guys who tie their shoelaces together and have tape on their glasses. You shatter stereotypes, preconceived notions about what you do, and that helps with premium positioning. The other thing that you can do, and this is more like internet marketing and tricky, is you can just simply start charging more, and you may have fewer clients, but the people that you do have will have paid you more. What that does is it sets you up as the people that are the luxury brand. But the problem is that a lot of people try to do that, and then their level of service totally stinks. So you'll get somebody who's like, I charge $18,000 for a sales letter. And you go, okay, well, let's see what you've done so far. And they send you a piece of crap.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, well, there's another guy who charges 15 grand for a sales letter, and I liked his better. And then you lose because you don't really charge 18 grand for a sales letter. You'd be lucky to charge $800 for a sales letter. You just tried to pull a fast one. And since you didn't have the experience or the client base, you totally lost that deal. And we've had marketers do that a lot with us. Oh, wait, I usually charge this for a video, or I usually charge this for web stuff, or I usually charge this for copy. And then we'll go with a lower priced guy that we liked better. And then they go, I'll charge you a little bit less. No, it's too late. Or, no, how about instead of charging us half of that, you charge us 10%? And now you're back to where your market rate should be. You might fool some people. We've been fooled a bunch, but there's a lot of people we won't work with anymore. And when people say, hey, does anybody know a good copywriter? I'll say, well, yes, and stay away from this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy because they're full of crap. And copywriters are a dime a dozen. So they're very, very commoditized. And so a lot of people who try premium positioning are doing it in an area that's commoditized. They're doing it in copy. They're doing it in graphic design. They're doing it in web design. If you design TechCrunch, yeah, you're a great web company. We'll hire you. In fact, we did. We hired TechCrunch to do our website at theartofcharm.com. And we're going to hire somebody who's not TechCrunch to redo theartofcharmpodcast.com because it's a little bit more focused and it's not going to matter. So what we have there is we've hired premium positioning, we've hired non-premium positioning, and that's great. Not everybody needs to be premium positioned. And I think that's something that's lost. I don't know if Nick went over that, but that's something that's lost on a lot of people who are starting off. They go, I want to be the luxury brand. Well, yeah, every car company wants to be Ferrari, but they're not going to be. The reason Ferrari's Ferrari is because they're doing what Ferrari does.
Yeah.
Lamborghini's not trying to be Ferrari either. They're the alternative to Ferrari. They are Lamborghini. Ford and GM, yeah, you might go for Ford and then you might go to GM. It's $100 cheaper and you like the locks better, or you like the angle of the car, or they have a sticker in a place that you like and it smells better, so you buy that one. That's why those companies are at the same level. But not everybody needs to be premium positioned. You buy a Ford Mustang, it's a high-end Ford. It's not a Ferrari.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
there's a
I mean, I
reason for
agree
that.
with that as well. But one other thing is that you might not. I mean, you want maybe clients when you are starting out. You don't need to be premium positioned right there because Nick said something really important. Everyone is kind of winging it their first time. And what he
Yes.
meant by that is that experts like yourself, like John Lee Dumas, they started from scratch, and now
Yes.
you guys have amazing businesses. But when you started, you like started from where other people are right now. Maybe they're listening into this. They have no podcast. They might want to start. And yeah, I mean, it's just about that, finding your expertise, then positioning yourself, and also kind of you found your niche. Obviously, you were able to stand out, be authentic. I'm sure we can get into a little bit how other people are trying to copy you guys now, because that happens, and that's not the way
Yes.
to go. So let's talk
Right.
about how you can stand out in a crowded marketplace.
Sure. So some of the things that we do, and this might be more unique to the podcast market, as well as the services that we offer, but we have amazing customer service. If you call, we have a phone number. People answer 24 hours a day. If you send an email, you'll probably get a response within 24 hours, usually sooner than that. If you come to the program, you're like family. If you have a problem, even if it has nothing to do with us, we'll help you in whatever way we can. In fact, I had a guy fly to Detroit, and he said, oh man, I'm stuck in Detroit. Do you know what I should do where I can stay? And I said, here's a bunch of people I know. And if that doesn't work, you can call my parents. So I actually hooked him up with my parent. And this is an Art of Charm program graduate. So we take it seriously. We don't just go, when you come here, you're like family. It's not a restaurant chain that has that as a slogan. It's an actual Art of Charm family. And we have an alumni group that's extremely active where people share things that you wouldn't maybe tell some of your best friends, but we treat it with serious business. So that's good. People feel safe. People feel secure. We have great customer service. We have a great experience for everybody. The other thing that we do to stand out in terms of like the podcast, for example, is we have great guests. We don't let people come on and drop their cookie cutter bullcrap, like same thing I did on every other show spiel. In fact, when people do that, I'll even write them and say, hey, let's cancel our show for now and do it next year because I noticed that you gave the exact same show notes to four other podcasters in similar niches. And so no one's going to want to hear this. And usually, sometimes people get really mad because you basically called them out. Like, oh, but I'm releasing a book. Of course, I'm going to talk about similar things. No, no, you can promote your book if you want, but I want something unique for the show. I don't
Yeah.
want what your book is about plus two different little bullet points, the same that you gave on everybody else's show. That's lame. That's boring. I don't want anything to do with that. And I'm not afraid to tell a would-be best-selling or even current best-selling author that doesn't interest me at all. I also won't allow people to take shortcuts. I'll email a lot of people that have done a lot of media, and I have show prep for my show that goes pretty deep. It doesn't take a ton of time, but people have to fill this thing out. A lot of people don't want to do it. They go, hey, man, I've done a lot of media. I don't want to do the prep. We're a couple of pros. Let's make it happen. And I say, well, since we're both pros, you know that this is really important. And I won't let them do it because what happens is people go, no, I can talk about anything. I've done a ton of media. And then they get on the show and I go, so thing I Googled, and they go, yeah, I'm not really doing that so much anymore, but let's talk about my new product. Well, no, I don't want to talk about your new product. Oh, well, I didn't really think about that. Or I'll ask them a question and they'll go, oh, man, I haven't thought about that in a long time. And I go, well, you would have if you'd filled out the freaking preparation. And then and I've let some people in the past go without filling it out. And then they go, man, how's my show doing? And I go, it's underperforming by about 100,000 downloads. And they go, wait, what? Why? And I go, well, you weren't prepared. And, it makes them a little bit angry. But I'm not afraid to tell people the truth.
Definitely.
And so what I'll do is I'll make sure that people know that it is not optional to fill out the show prep. You don't have a choice. It's something that you do if you want to be on the show. If you don't want 800,000 people to hear you, then that's fine. But if you do, then spend 15 minutes writing a freaking email that I send you and fill it out. And that makes it nice and clean. The other thing I don't do is I don't oversell. I don't sit there and go to theartofcharmpodcast.com for more resources. I say once in the beginning, I say it once in the end. I don't drop a million URLs. There's not affiliate links for everything.
Yeah.
I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't need to make $12 because you bought a stove off of Amazon after you clicked through on my website. That's not how we make our money. We don't have a zillion calls to action. The call to action is go to theartofcharmpodcast.com, check out what we have, subscribe in iTunes. If you like it, write us an iTunes review. Everything else takes care of itself from there. Create a great experience, invest in your equipment. I'm sitting in an $11,000 studio right now in my home. I look like crap because I, didn't shave, but that aside, I've got equipment. Now, I'm not saying you need an $11,000 studio. What I am saying is don't be that guy who thinks he's going to record his podcast on his iPhone at a Starbucks. Because there are people that do that. You know who I'm talking about, too.
Yeah.
And it sounds like crap, and people don't want to hear that. And it does you a disservice because what you're doing is you've got your personal brand. You're saying, I'm a luxury brand. And then you've got audio that cuts out, and there's static, and you're breathing into the phone, and you don't edit your stuff. And you've got crummy equipment. Why are you a luxury brand? Oh, because you say you are? That's like a made-in-China clothing company be like, when they write, like, luxurious fabrics, and you're laughing at the English because it sounds weird. That's like a fake luxury brand, and that's what a lot of people are doing. Don't say you're a luxury brand if you're not. If you're a show with a bunch of dudes sitting around talking about something, then that's your brand. You can evolve your brand, but don't claim to be something you're not, because once people see through that, you are done. Because they won't trust you anymore.
Great point. And your personal brand is essentially what other people say about you when you're not around. So that's true.
Yeah.
That's the most kind of best thing you can do for yourself if you want to position yourself premiumly, set yourself up for it. It doesn't have to be perfect when you're starting out. Obviously, it never is. It wasn't for you guys, and see how far you've gone now. But now it's more competition as well. If you want to launch a show, if you want to launch a blog, so it's way more out there. So the tips you gave, kind of how you can stand out, like customer service, like kind of like Zappos, like you offer like extremely like premium service to your customers. That's like you said, like family. and that's
Yeah.
really amazing. And something else I want to get into a little bit, like you mentioned how you monetize. You don't sell on your show like,
No.
hey, go to Amazon and click this link. You don't do that stuff. So how do you monetize your show, and how, like, you're obviously getting a lot of listeners now, so they might come to your boot camps, events, residentials.
Yes.
Is that how you get your money?
That's primary. That's the primary method of monetization. The other thing is people go, I want to support the show. I really like it. Or they go, I wonder if these guys have any products. They go to the website and they see them. Sometimes we'll mention it. We'll do a show on how to break up with your girlfriend, and you'll go to theartofcharm.com/breakups or whatever it was, and there's an ebook there, but it's free, right? It's free, so you download it. And then when you're on that list, when we release something that's not free, you get an email about it. But you don't get an email that's like, buy this or you'll never reproduce. We get an email, we'll send you an email that's like, hey, this is a problem a lot of you've complained about. We created a product that helps it. It includes an element of live coaching. That's why it's more expensive than our usual stuff, which is usually free. So if you want it, buy it, and people will buy it. And sometimes I'll try different marketing techniques and it'll work, and sometimes it won't. But we never really go for like the burn the bridges marketing stuff, the extreme urgency. It's just not necessary. We've been around for almost 10 years. We're going to be around for at least 10 more, if I have anything to say about it. And that's the where it is. The other thing that we'll do to monetize is somebody will go, man, I need an audience of, this is where networking comes in. I'm looking for audiences of men that are between this age, and maybe they're mostly single or maybe they're not. Doesn't matter. Where can I find a large audience? Well, they're going to go to the Art of Manliness blog, and they're going to go to they're going to go to Joe Rogan's podcast, and they're going to go to the Art of Charm podcast, and they're going to say, hey, listen, we want to get our app on 40,000 smartphones. We're going to give you 10 grand if you talk about it on your show. Can you do that? Sure, I'll take 10 grand. That pays a lot of bills. And then I'll advertise that app, or I'll advertise whatever it is that they want. But if it's something crummy, I'm not going to do it, And other times people will say, hey, I really need a bump for my product. I'm brand new. I'm really small. Can I send you some of it? And I say, what is it? And they say scotch. And I say, sure, here's my address, And so I'll get a bunch of, scotch or a new vodka that's launching or a yoga mat, and I'll give it to my girlfriend and ask her how she likes it. And I'll mention it on the show. And then a few dozen or a few hundred guys will do it. If I get a free suit from a suit company or a couple of those, I'll say, I got a free suit from these guys. And, if it's a piece of junk, you won't hear about it. But if it's really nice, I'll say, I'm wearing this suit. Full disclosure, it was free, but damn, I would have paid for it. And I bought another one because I liked it. That kind of thing will allow you to live a rich life, even if they're not shelling out the dough. But you can monetize from sponsorships, and you can monetize through products. Just don't create a show because you want to monetize through crummy sponsorships or crummy products, because you're just going to burn your audience. And people, a lot of times, they go, yeah, I don't care. I just want the money. You're going to feel that, and then you're going to have wasted all of that work, because burning your audience is that process is a lot faster than building it. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely, it's all about building the audience. For example, like John Lee Dumas, he built an audience, and then he started to monetize with sponsorships. And right now, I can just tell you, like, I've been studying a lot of what podcasters are doing, and it's like hard. My business model, for example, is not podcasting. I make money for other ways. I'm gonna have courses, stuff like that. That's how I'm gonna monetize masterminds. It's not like through the podcast. It's a platform. It's just like blogging. It's my blog, and I want to drive them back there to my website. So one thing you've done as well, we talked about before the show, is that you increase the level. Like now you're doing 3 times, I believe, a week. How have you seen like the increase maybe in downloads or people coming to you? Is that helping you to maybe drive more traffic to your website, or why did you do that?
Yes. Well, what we do is we looked at downloads per month, and we looked at downloads per episode. So I just experimented. I tested like any good, I think you guys internet marketers are always testing things. I was doing once a week, and I thought, man, I really like recording it. I could release twice a week and easily keep up with that. It wouldn't be a problem at all. So I started recording and releasing twice a week. And what I noticed was my downloads did not double. They actually pretty much tripled, which means that my audience was growing. And then I noticed that my downloads per episode went up more than it normally was. Maybe you get like a 5% increase every month in your audience size. I started getting like 5% per week.
Wow.
When I switched to 3. And not monthly downloads per episode. So what that means is instead of having 20,000 downloads one week, I ended up with 21,000 the next week. And then it was 22 and 24 and 25. And that was really important, because that says that not only is your total downloads, of course, your downloads are going to triple. If you're releasing 7 days a week, you're going to have 7 times as many downloads as somebody who releases once a week. I mean, of course, it goes without saying. However, and pardon the sirens, I live in a city. The thing is, if you release 3 times a week, and instead of once a week, and you're getting 8 times as many downloads, you know that the reason is because your audience is increasing. Now, of course, there's the back catalog, so that's why we use downloads per episode as a metric and not total downloads. Monthly downloads are a thing that marketers use, and they go, I'm getting 500,000 downloads a month. Well, that's great. You've got 800 episodes. Of course, you're getting 500,000 downloads.
Yeah.
But if you've got one a week or two a week, that's why you look at guys like Pat Flynn. He can go, yeah, I'm getting X number of downloads per month. Oh, but each episode is getting 80,000 because he's only releasing once a week. He's got a huge audience.
Definitely.
And so that's what you want to do when you're looking at those metrics. But I tested like crazy and I found the sweet spot. I think any more than 3 guys start to fall off the wagon. They get overwhelmed with the level of content. It becomes harder to produce. It ends up being kind of like a machine instead of a marketing machine instead of a show that people can follow with pleasure. And so 3 times a week is the sweet spot for me. Guys who are doing once a week, that might be the sweet spot. Maybe there's not enough going on to talk for that long. And that's the same with show length. Test it. I talk for an hour. That's because I like long format.
Yeah.
I like getting really deep. Some people talk for 20 minutes or half an hour. That's fine. They're blowing through pre-scripted questions. That's what the audience is looking for. They don't care about the discussion factor. They care about the information.
Yeah.
That's a better format for that show, for that person. Some people talk for 2 hours. I have a hard time believing they tested that. I think they just like to talk.
Like Tim Ferriss recently launched a podcast. He had very long episodes. So
yeah. And some people might love that, but I think I bet that if we look at how long people are listening to his show and when they stop listening, that you'll find that a lot of people fall off before the end.
Yeah, I mean that's very common, I think. But it's also about what you kind of enjoy, how deep you want to get with the audience. Like Mixergy, for example, like people are willing to pay for the episodes because they are so great. They go in depth, and that's kind of the same like with your show. You are going more in depth with your guests. You're not asking pre-scripted questions. I mean, you have some things you're sending. You're pre-interviewing them, which is really cool. That's also something I want to get into in the future you can provide even more value, I think, to an audience if you really prepare your guests to deliver the like massive value if they're maybe not used to it for some reason or not used to the form of the show. I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, have you seen, by the way, in iTunes, like a lot of people, like they are leaving, I mean, when you're getting big, how do you deal with the haters, in iTunes? Like they're like leaving this 1-star review sometimes, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Let's look at one of my 1-star reviews right now, and I'll tell you exactly what I think of this specific review. Are you cool with that? Let me go into iTunes.
Definitely.
This page is unavailable. Okay, that's great. Well, good job, iTunes. Let's see what we can do with a manual search. All right. Showing results for the art of drawing. What the hell? That's not good.
#fail,
Hashtag where's my podcast?
Yeah. Where's your podcast? Yeah, sometimes it's not working, but I have not been around for so long, but I see for some bigger podcasts, maybe they've been around for a while. I'd be surprised if they don't have at least like 2 or 3 1-star reviews or even more sometimes. But that's how it is, I guess. Some people will not like it. Maybe they complain about the audio. They complain the way you interview. It's all about that kind of stuff, I think, as well.
Yeah. I'm trying to look, and honestly, I'm having trouble finding it because iTunes is down, or not working for me, which is obviously super annoying. But what are you gonna do? I know that some of the reviews are really silly. Like I get people that go, "This podcast isn't for women," and it's like, no, it's not. That's okay. And that's totally fine. I get other 1-star reviews that are like, you know what, I listened to this and I think it's a bunch of garbage. And I'm like, man, that's fine. I look at typically what those other people review just to kind of make myself feel better temporarily. And often what they do is they go to app to app to app, and pretty much it looks like everything they've ever listened to or downloaded has been the worst thing ever and totally horrible and garbage and and awful. And you know what? Whatever. What are you going to do?
Yeah. It's just to get over it, right?
Get over it.
Yeah, just start with the mindset, and just I mean, I think that is important. I mean, I'm sure you read like How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, and all that kind of stuff. That I mean, that helped me a lot early on when I was starting out first with the personal development side of things to really like get into the mindset that other people they will not affect. I mean, if I'm getting great emails from other people telling me my show is amazing, and then I get one person maybe once, saying, "No, I don't like your show. The sound was awful." I'm not gonna care. It's not bothering me that much. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's you just got to kind of deal with it and think about it. If I look and I've got 500 5-star reviews and 3 1-star reviews from people that sound largely unreasonable by the way they review other things, I mean,
yeah.
I take it as a sign that hey, show's getting big enough that people are actually care about it. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
awesome, excellent.
Yeah, we reached
And
the no, like, definitely. I mean, I think that's very true. We reached kind of the last question now, and I wanted to ask you this because you've been around for such a long time. So, if you would start the Art of Charm today and build it up to the level of success it has now, kind of what's some steps you would take to launch it and get it to the level you are now? Like, what would you do? Like, what's the first thing you would do to get it there?
the first thing I would do is, wow, that's a great question. I think the first thing I would do is line up a bunch of really good guests as best I could by leveraging my network. And if I didn't have that network, I would wait to launch my show until I had a bunch of people in the can. I would record good interviews with them. I would professionally produce them so that they sound good because a lot of people skimp on that and they try to do it themselves and it sounds like crap. I would even rent good equipment if I had to. And then I would launch with like 10 really solid guests and have them all coordinated in their promotion. That would launch me into the new and notable feature in iTunes. That would top rank me in the category. And then I would have a list of contact information of guests that I want to get on that I couldn't before and go, hey, look, I'm new and notable in iTunes and I'm number 5 in health. And, you should come on my show right now. And then I would record in a whirlwind, like several every day shows and just rock it and then have them all edited, turn them around as quickly as I could and have those people promote so I could keep my top ranked spot. And if you keep that snowball going, you'll be good to go.
Definitely great tips there as well. And it's a lot of people they should definitely leverage their when they are in the noteworthy of iTunes because that's when you can kind of reach out to the higher level guests because you will drop out eventually when you're noteworthy. So you should leverage that during the time you have the 8 weeks. I think so. I think that's important. So I mean, you've given my audience some amazing tips here, like networking, podcasting, all that kind of good stuff. So where can people find you and connect with you online?
Go to just, you're listening to a podcast right now. Go to the artofcharmpodcast.com or look for us in iTunes. Just search for the Art of Charm where, I'd love for guys to just start listening. I'm not going to ask anybody to buy anything, but people can also email me, jordanh@theartofcharm.com. I love email. I answer everything. Twitter's fine too, but honestly, you know what? Email is always better, and Facebook works too, but I get buried there. So
Definitely. I mean, you can find everything we talked about today, everything in the show notes page over at navid.me/31. And be sure to, if you enjoy Jordan's podcast, you can head over to iTunes, leave him a 5-star review. I think that would be really great thing to show our appreciation for your time. So any final words you have to my audience now before we say goodbye?
no, that's it, guys. Just check out the podcast and enjoy the free stuff and contact me whenever. I'd look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time and sharing so much value. Thanks.
Thank you.